So, welcome all back to the Cops Canteen show, to episode number 6. And this week, the topic we're going to have the topic of the good, the bad, and the broken. So, what is good policing? What is bad policing, as we see it, and what is the impacts on those that are broken or deemed to be broken on the front line? So, we're going back to continue talking about our PTSD matters. And this week we're lucky to have on Nick White from Bellator Fortitudinem, the group that he's developed to set up supports for folk that have been affected. So welcome guys this week to the canteen. Thanks for joining us. And
Thank you.
yeah, we'll kick off. We have so this week we've got Mads, who's ex-Western Australian and ex-Danish police, and we have myself, who's ex-Garda Síochána over in Ireland, and of course Nick White, who's ex-New South Wales Police Force. Nick, can you just introduce yourself there and give us a little bit of your history, being the first time on the segment?
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. My name is Nick. I did 19 and a half years with the New South Wales Police. All of that was frontline. So I've done GDs, beats, supervising, highway operations all around the state. So I've worked literally everywhere around the state in all the areas, and then obviously been deployed everywhere that the powers that be send us, really. And I got out. What have we now? I got out 2022 in November. So yeah, that's when I actually left the police. I just one bad job too many, and saw how it was going, and I took the discharge.
That's fair enough, Nick. So you've got a lot of experience under your
Yeah.
belt. Yeah, for sure. I was reflecting on the way up here to do this program. I was reflecting on well, what is good policing? And for me, good policing has always been about being very proactive in the community, not waiting, not being reactive, is trying to resolve the problems before they become a problem. And I reflected on Garda Síochána over in Ireland. There was a statement by the original commissioner, the first police commissioner over there in Ireland, and he said, his name was Michael Staines. He says the Garda Síochána will succeed not by force of arms or numbers, but on their moral authority as servants of the people. Now that was Michael Staines, and for me, really, that's where we have to get back to again. Is by the police acting on the moral authority as servants of the people, and by servants of the people, it's really a connection with the people and listening with the people and getting involved in the community and understanding what the problems are. But we're starting to see a bit of a disconnect. And over the last number of shows, we've spoken about a breakdown in the connection with the community policing and crime prevention. Is that something that you experienced up in New South Wales, in the police force, Nick? Was a pullback away from investment into community relations?
Oh, definitely. When I first started, obviously you do your time in general duties, and then I went on to what was known as beats, which is basically the old foot patrol.
Yep.
Because of where I was stationed at Liverpool, we ended up doing all the CBD and the big shopping centres and things like that. Now, when I started in 2003, the crew that we had in beats, we were big guys, tattooed. We look like you don't screw around with us. But it also gave the community that sort of feeling of, wow, we actually have some big coppers who are going to look after us. Yeah, presence. And we actually knew, like, all the businesses, we knew them by name. We'd stop in and say hello. There was a huge push for that community policing and that community, that community respect. Unfortunately, what I've seen is it's all gone political, and it's all gone to be what from pretty much from senior management up, they turned it around and they made positions such as the school liaison officer and the crime prevention officer. They didn't leave the police station until they were going to a meeting or going to a school, and then they would come back and try to tell all the other frontline policemen how to do their job in relation to, attacking a certain incident or a crime spree or dealing with young offenders and things like that. So there was definitely a push away from that. And unfortunately, a lot of people then turned around and said, well, I don't want to go and do time in the beats. And they just wanted to go back on the truck. And then, unfortunately, it just becomes reactive. And you're not listening to anyone. You're not listening to these meetings. You're not listening to the individuals. I don't know whether you guys ever had it, but when I was growing up, we used to have a thing called Neighbourhood Watch, and you used to join it, and you could meet with people, but everyone had a sticker on their letterbox where it was to say that I'm a member of Neighbourhood Watch, but it was also a place where kids coming home from school, if they were suddenly getting followed by, old creepy man in the white van, you could run to this house, knock on the door, and it was a safe haven. Nowadays, like, I can't remember the last time I saw any of that. I'm pretty sure Neighbourhood Watch was disbanded years ago. But back then, it was a community source. So there was a big community and law enforcement engagement. But it's just gone by the wayside. And it's a shame because, how many people know their neighbours nowadays, even in society? It's just...
That's exactly it. Yeah, there's a great disconnect there. I got a copy of the paper there today, just right here, and it's got a section in it here where it's talking about the axe falls on more workers, more public servants. But down at the end of it, Nick, it has down here the executive staff at Corrections Victoria. Now I know you're in New South Wales, but I want to get your take on this. Executive staff at Corrections Victoria have warned ministers about a risk to public safety amid mass job cuts to workers who manage high-risk offenders that serve their sentences in the community, right?
Yeah.
It says here the Herald Sun is being told that during the regional meeting with corrections staff about major budget cuts on Wednesday, a corrections executive said the changes would result in more crimes being committed and an increased risk to the community. Perpetrators supervised by staff whose jobs have been axed include high-risk sex offenders, serious violence offenders, and family violence offenders. Now, this is certainly not in the interest of the community, and when you amplify that with that disconnect that you're talking about, Nick, that community disconnect or the absence of neighbourhood policing, it's critical that we need to start looking at this again, where the community start to work closely with the police to look after both of our interests, both the police and the community, to be more proactive.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but without a doubt.
I mean, what you're just saying there with that article, I see a very similar aspect with corrective services, or what we used to call screws, and the police, because they're taking away. It's like trying to fight a battle with one arm behind your back. You can't do it. And unfortunately, these people that are in these highly stressful positions, they have to do certain things to get the job done. It's the bean counters that don't like these things being done because, again, and I don't know why, it's fallen back to, I'm trying to figure the way to say it. Instead of putting the criminals in cotton wool, if you've done your time, if you've done the crime, then you're doing the time. And you've got these people who look after these high-risk offenders, but you shouldn't be losing these people, and definitely you shouldn't be putting these high-risk offenders in the community. The whole idea of policing is to prevent the loss of life and protect property. So you're supposed to be protecting other police officers, other members of the community, but also their property as well. So if you've got some bloke who's a high-risk sexual predator and he's in the community, I know they turn around and go, we have the digital monitoring of them with their bands. Well, a bloke in Western Australia has just cut his off and is on the run, and he's a convicted sexual predator and murderer. So there's a big manhunt over there at the moment. So you can't have these people in society. Some people you just cannot rehabilitate. But to do what they're doing, you can only, unfortunately, the way that it is, you can only give so many warnings before people are going to go, well, what do you want us to do? We've told the bosses about this. And it's smoke and mirrors by the politicians, by the senior officers, by trying to sway the community's opinion and to say that they're all going to be safe, when, unfortunately, those of us who put on whichever uniform and whichever branch they're in, we know the truth that it's not safe. But no one seems to want to listen to anyone from senior management down. And it's unfortunate because the ones from senior management down are the ones who are dealing with it. And they're the ones who have to go to these issues and go to these scenes. And they're the ones who eventually end up going, well, I can't do this job anymore. They leave, then they can't have enough staff to do these things. And it's just turns into a bigger than Ben-Hur situation.
That's right. It really does, Nick. And it's, what really is getting me. There's a dichotomy of difficulty as well in the perception that many people have with the police because of instances that have happened, and high-profile incidents like the situation, the protest down here in Melbourne, for example. There was specific incidents there that didn't help the police at all, right? In the wider scope, and many people use the word them and they, and this generalization that all police operations are similar to these, specific incidents where we had young members step out of line, or we had young members being directed by senior members that weren't thinking with their boots on and with their heads on,
That's right.
And again, with political interference and narrative interference. And we really got to get back to the grassroots of, like Michael Stein said, that Force Garda commissioner said, it's the police are there by the consent of the people, with the consent of the people. And to get the consent of the people and the support of the people, we have to communicate. We have to talk. We have to encourage communication, And, there was a fantastic thing, as you're aware, that have a coffee with a cop. I thought it was great. Anyway, it was down here in Knox. I didn't get to have that coffee on the day. I did have a follow-up coffee with one of the members and had a conversation. But that's where we need to get back to sitting down, having a talk and listening. What is your issue of concern? Is it something that the police can do something about? If it's something that the police can't do something about, well, who deals with it? And helping people in that regard. And, even getting back to working with the young lads that are young juveniles, they used to have boxing clubs years ago where the police used to get involved in boxing clubs. On phase 2 training over in Ireland, I spent a lot of time working with youths, and it was fantastic, building up their confidence, and getting to work with these young lads in the community and building up trust and a relationship. Mads, I'll just bring you up. I'm sorry, Nick, go ahead there. Yeah.
I was going to say they've still got PCYC in New South Wales, which is of a very similar vein, and that does a lot of good. You have specialist trained police go there under the youth command, and a lot of kids in trouble environments, like take Green Valley, for example. Nice people there, but when I first started, it was not exactly the most desirable location. And a lot of troubled youth who can't have safety at home after school, they would go to these places, and it was a safe haven for them because they would play, they would be involved in sports, then they got into the boxing and all that. So those sorts of things are still around. It's just unfortunately not many of them.
Yeah. It needs to get back into that space. Yeah, Mads, you're a personal trainer. Mads, you're in that space. Is that something you got much involved in the job, working with the youth?
Oh yeah, physical training, martial arts, all these things is one of my go-tos when I'm working with any youths. Like I have a teenager at the moment I'm training with at the moment. He's been having some rough time. He went to hospital overdosing on some pills, but he's found joy again with getting back to an active lifestyle.
Oh, that's good.
Like Nick was just saying, like I remember in Western Australia, we used to go out and play footy games with the local youth, the local Aborigines around, but they've also stopped doing that, taking away that community policing. The kids used to love it when we came in a paddy wagon with 2 cartons of beer in the back and went down to the park on a Saturday to play football with them.
Yeah.
The police is down here playing football, and they're even drinking out in public, even though they're not supposed to. It made us human, and it created that. Yeah.
Discretion.
When we came back on a Monday morning and went out to a bad neighborhood out there, you could talk to these kids because they just seen you on Saturday playing footy with them.
Yes. Yeah.
You could reach them. So physical activity, anything sports related, I think is a great way to reach the youths.
It is, but look, this is amplified, Mads. We have this disconnect with the wider community. We have lots of issue motivated groups out there. And when I started the show, I mentioned Michael Steins in Ireland in 1922, and the reason I did that was because this place is starting to feel like Ireland in 1922, or would have felt. That was post the Civil War, where you had all of these groups facing off against each other in Ireland, and you needed people to be in the middle, not taking any sides, completely apolitical, and just dealing with the law. That's what they were doing back then. And you know, there's definitely seems to be a gradualist interference in the police operation over the last number of years, and I'd say decades, like a creep of disconnection seems to have kicked in.
Yeah, it's happened slowly over the years. So I think most people haven't even noticed it happening until you actually point it out to them. They are just, you know, here in Denmark, a lot of the police are here. They're complaining about management. They're complaining about they're not getting allowed to take their extra time off. They're not having time with their family, all the usual things, but they're not seeing the picture in it. They're just going through, just complaining, not doing anything about it. So I think it's happening so slowly on purpose that people will not notice.
Mads, do you reckon that, sorry, Mads, mate, do you reckon what you're saying about the football with the Indigenous and all that, I think it's a brilliant idea. I used to drive around and, you know, you go to the noise complaints with people playing in the street, and you'd rock up and you end up playing with the kids and showing them that, you know, you are human. Do you think that it's not happening, or it doesn't happen as much due to staffing levels, just because people have the shits and have just gone about enough?
Ooh, that's a good question. In Western Australia, I more had the impression that it was actually management that started to create that disconnect. They didn't want us to be connected with the community anymore. In Denmark, It had already happened.
That's yeah. I think we've established that this seems to be not just country specific. That this is we've seen this in Ireland. We've seen it, of course, here in Australia. Dennis has seen it over in Holland. So it seems to be some sort of an agenda in the background that needs to be addressed. Whatever the agenda is, it's starting to affect the relationship with the community and the police. And you know, I feel as an ex-member, and I'm sure you guys probably feel the same thing. We have to be vocal in rebuilding this connection at the grassroots and raising these issues on behalf of the community, and also on behalf of the frontline members who have to deal with the extra stressors and the extra pressures that are caused because of this disconnection. I'm sure the guys carry it as well on their shoulders every day of the week. When you see negative reports, when you see negative incidents by some members on of course, social media platforms, you wear it because you once were one of them, you know, or you are one of them, you know, and this word them, this generalization, and fellas can carry that. So it's leading to this negative environment, which we need to turn around, which is and we have to find ways to do that. That's my take.
I believe, like what we talked about before, this, in my opinion, comes down purely to management and the politicians. This is the way I'm seeing it. It's purely management that's making decisions. They're not even listening to the people on the floor. They're not asking their opinion on anything. The politicians are not listening to anything that comes out. They just do what they want.
Yeah, and that's all over the place as well. Like, you know, prime example is we have all the dramas that we face here, and when I was in the job, we were fighting every year to get a pay rise. But they would turn around and then they'd give you the 2.5% over X amount of years, and then the next breath they'd give themselves all these different pay rises and all these lurks and perks that they get after they've left the job, and anything from senior management up to, you know, the Ivory Castle, they're all backstabbing and looking after each other. So you definitely can see there's an us and them mentality within the job as there is outside, because you're right. People see one thing happening and they go, well, all police are like that. Well, no, they're not, because you're judging one person or one incident on probably a very inexperienced officer that's dealt with something, or an officer that's just got too pissed off too quickly and has gone hands-on. And unfortunately, in this day and age, there's cameras everywhere. You know, 20 years ago, things were different. Because I think society in general, the respect everyone, especially the younger people, I think the respect they have for older people has changed definitely. I remember when I was growing up, I was mucking around downtown, and the local coppers literally kicked me in the ass and went, "I know you're old man," and that was one big thing. But that clearly doesn't happen nowadays because, unfortunately, the mobile phone that's attached to everyone's hand will only grab 6 seconds of an incident, but it's led, the cops might have been there for 20 minutes. So again, I think that's one thing that management does as well, is they crucify before they make the inquiry. But if you're a crim, you're innocent until proven guilty. And that's not afforded the same deal when you're wearing the uniform, because it's like as soon as something happens, well, you're automatically assumed to have done the wrong thing until the investigation happens. So
this elevates the cover your arse environment, which is a problem because people are just operating down off of a CYA operation as such. So you lose the element of discretion to a large degree, especially and I noticed this, but it's just the way the system seems to have evolved as well, Nick. We have I mean, the AVO is a big issue out there. I know it's taken up a lot of time with units and everything else. But it's the CYA approach to that is, members, I understand, are being told to issue them. Young members are being told to issue them on face value, just in case. Yeah. And I can understand that just in case, when something bad could potentially happen. And of course, bad things can happen, But the problem is when you're doing that all around the board without proper balanced application of investigation into a situation, what happens is you get swamped then with allegations and AVOs. There's a whole sea of them out there now. And it's different to the system that we had in Ireland. We had an interim. If you wanted to get a barring order, you could get an interim, but you'd have to establish the facts as soon as reasonably practicable afterwards and get it into the court. But this, with the delays in the courts as well, it's increasing frustrations. With families, you get fathers taken away from families for months on end because of this. And that increases negative sentiment as well. And again, towards the police, when they're caught in this policy, this process, that they're stuck in the middle of, and it's breaking down that relationship with the police. It's a tough one. It's a difficult mountain to try. It's a difficult ship to try and turn around, but it has to be done.
I think there needs to be, like we've had in New South Wales, obviously varying commissioners and things like that, but I think there needs to be a massive shake of the tree from the top. So instead of getting rid of the dead wood of, like a senior sergeant who's sitting in an office who's only got 5 years left to go and he's doing a job, how about you turn the tree upside down and shake it and let some of the dead wood in the senior management go and start afresh? Because I think a fresh approach and a new set of eyes will make a hell of a difference. Because take the uniforms, for example. One of the commissioners who's no longer there, obviously in New South Wales, when we had changed to what I refer to as the paramilitary style, when, if you're going to get us military boots and make us wear combat boots, it's turning to a paramilitary thing. When we were questioning, well, why do we still have the two tones? His reply was, I like tradition, so I'm not going to change it. So that's something very simple as the uniform, because they like tradition. Like when I joined the job, it was the same style of uniform as my old man wore 20 years prior to that. So if you just take that as one very, very basic and simple analogy, that's how they are with management of uniforms. When they come to management of their staff and trying to get things in the community, they're still trapped 20 years behind us.
How do we get around this? Because this is obviously supported with culture, and the associations seem to be powerless in terms of leveraging these matters. How does this ship get turned around, Nick? How does what other approach can be taken in this regard, do you think?
Mate,
it's a hard question. It's the big question.
I have respect for the people that go towards like the police association and the police union and things like that. in New South Wales, and I'm open to say, because I'm not in the job anymore, my opinion of the Police Association in New South Wales is that it's great to go there if you want to get a promotion, because it's not a union. Doesn't have the power of a union. They go into bat for, we're going to look after you for pay rises and if you're in trouble and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, they're going to be persuaded by the senior management and politicians. You do need a union in these sorts of issues, not to turn around and strike all the time over every little bit, but you need a union to turn around and go, well, we're serving all ex-members and we know what this is happening. So we need to talk about this. Otherwise, we're going to take proper industrial action and take it through the legal channels. Yes, the association does do the legal channels, but it doesn't get the results that the troops want. And then, as I said, they just bow to these senior people. But I think it needs to be, especially in New South Wales, a stronger union and not an association, an actual union that is supporting the police and the officers on the front line, and who can turn around and go, right, we need to chat with the bosses because this has been going on for far too long and it needs to change, because we're not seen as the people that come to help you. You know, the fireys and the ambos are always going to be seen as the heroes. We're seen as the security team, the armed on the long arm of the law. We're not seen as, unfortunately, as those people that, I wouldn't say trusted, but we're definitely not seen in a favourable light. And that needs to change, and it needs to change by people stepping up and going, we need to have a chat, because unless you've got your head underwater, like where and why has this been allowed to go on for so long?
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I'm so focused on the community element of engagement, Nick, is because, you know, it starts with the support of the community. If these decisions by the bean counters are really affecting the community, we need to engage with them, and we need to embrace these issues, and we need to help them vocalize this to senior management and to stakeholders. And like you say, is rattle the cage, but get the voice of the people together with the police at the bottom ranks, you know, because I know we're going to go onto the broke, and there's so many different members have been impacted by the job, and this is where we can really work together with each other. That's as I said, the community and the police. Once we take words like they and them out of it, you know, the police are not all the one. Yes, it's the one institution, but it's, you know, people vary hugely and widely in that, as much as they do within the community, as do their sentiments, as do their intentions and approaches. You know, so we really have to get back to having that positive understanding. But that's a little about the good side of police, and you know, the good days when we had that connection with the community. But I want to just move on to what's the bad side of it now. Just touching on a small incident during the week. I was speaking to a friend of mine, and he was involved in a driving incident. He went to court and he lost his license, and he was outside the court and he was helping getting the vehicle onto the trailer to comply with the whole thing. And the local boys pulled in and they done him for driving without a, you know, whilst having the license taken off him. Now, they could have showed a bit of discretion there. That was, you know, it was fairly targeted in my book, just to hear that. But, you know, that kind of targeting, that small action will now amplify negative sentiment towards the police in general. If he was to start going on about it, which I'm sure he'll get vocal about it as well. But small incidents like that, where discretion is not applied and it's amplifying the negative sentiment, is not really helpful to the police in a general sense right now at this particular time when there's so much tensions around. And my advice to police that are you know, not using that little bit of discretion is pull the heads in, lads. We need the community to get behind the police at this stage. There's no need for that. But on a bigger scale, I want to bring in Mads, because Mads wants to talk about something that's taking place over in Denmark at the moment. Are you there, Mads?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, we've
So we're talking about the bad. So yeah, you were telling me about what's taking place over there. I'll allow you to have the floor.
yeah. There's a documentary here in Denmark that's been released. It's quite of a long story, so I'll try and sum it up very quickly. But this has caused every bit of trust there is in police in Denmark now to disintegrate. People are on Facebook and social media the last couple of days. They've been ready to grab arms and start lynching the police. They have no trust in them. They have lost every ounce of what was left, what was there to build on from this incident. One of the mainstream news media have worked on a documentary for some time about a kid who's disappeared here in Denmark. He's now been missing for 18 months, and the last time he was seen alive was in police custody. Make a long story short, it all starts off with the dad being arrested for some illegal tobacco. They charge him for, but they don't bring in a lawyer in the middle of the night, and they end up releasing him. He gets acquitted in court. After that day, a systematic harassment of this family starts from these 4 police officers. Twice they have been deemed that they have entered and kicked in their door without an appropriate court order. They had no search warrants. They've made illegal arrests. They have lied in court. They have given false testimony. All of this have been proven that has happened. There have been phone threats, death threats made over the phone to this family and their kids that if they don't pull the complaints back, that something bad would happen to them and their kids. Several incidents happen, and this family has been beaten up. There's footage because, of course, this family has been very, very smart. They've installed cameras everywhere in their house without police knowing. So they have excellent footage of a lot of these incidents where they're literally being beaten and pounded up. One of them gets his arm broken. The mom gets pushed into a wall while holding a baby. And every time they do it, they end up charging the family for assaulting police, or they make a child welfare report on the kids. One of the child welfare reports actually turns out that the child was in school, wasn't even present. So the police lied on a social welfare report about the kids to have the kids taken away from the family. When the police have been approached by the news here in Denmark, they are not allowed to comment on the case. They have nothing to say. They have not investigated anything to do with his disappearance because they believe that he's well and they don't see any concern for his well-being, even though they can't tell any information about where he is. They can't tell the family what's been happening. The family is still looking for him. And they pretty much shut everything down. A couple of years ago, we had a 13-year-old girl that went missing. Within 24 hours, she was found after Army, Navy, military, dogs, everything went in the air to find her. No effort has been made to find this boy, and last time he was seen was with police custody. Now, after this documentary comes out, 6 days after, suddenly police in Denmark releases a picture that looks AI generated from a boy in Germany that apparently he's sought refuge, asylum in Germany, but he never showed up, so they don't have any concerns for him. They think he's safe in Germany somewhere, but they don't know where. People have gone absolutely lost it over here because no police are willing to step up. No one is willing to answer any questions. No one is willing to take anything or take any responsibility for it. 3 days after the documentary comes out, the Danish police decide to charge 2 of the officers for assault. So that's going to go to court now. So it's still an ongoing case. Tonight, there's massive protests in 3 major cities in Copenhagen, in Denmark, where people are going out to demand answers from the police and demand transparency again. They are fed and sick and tired of police here now. Police have covered everything up. The Danish police are literally covering up the case and holding the hand over these 4 officers, even though there's video evidence, there's everything. I have never seen anything as insane as this case.
Mads, can I ask you something? So there's 4 officers involved in this case. Is that correct?
Yes.
4 officers? Okay,
Yeah.
so that's 4 officers involved in this case. And we have the media office not releasing any details specific to the case. Is that correct?
Nothing. They're just saying they have reason to believe that he's well and that he's safe, but they cannot inform the reasons. They cannot inform anything of what they have actually done to actually search for this boy. They're just saying, we have done everything possible, but we cannot tell you what.
See, this again, I find this utterly bizarre, where the media office is creating and facilitating this tension almost by not releasing details, not facilitating, information disclosure in relation to it. The media office seems to be instrumental in the frustration as well.
Yes.
Definitely seems to be.
The union won't speak about it. No police in Denmark is willing to take anything out of this. They're not willing to say anything. Now, after the news started covering it, now they've actually turned around and they're no longer talking about where this boy is. They're talking about all the circumstantial evidence that's been around it, instead of actually focusing on the case and the fact that 4 police officers over a couple of years have systematically terrorized the family, made illegal search warrants, illegal arrests, broken the law so many times, and none of them are being charged with anything. Yeah. The investigating unit in Denmark, called the Independent Police Justice Unit or something like that. It's former police officers investigating active police officers for when they've done something wrong. They continue to just say they have no criticism of how they've handled the case, even though there's footage of police officers kicking the guy in the face, pepper spraying them while they're handcuffed. They have no criticism of them.
That's definitely not going to help the relationship with the public.
No,
sure.
Because you've actually now seen on national TV in Denmark, police seriously pepper spraying people while they're lying on the ground, handcuffed, kicking them, beating them up, and the bosses are covering it up, not willing to approach it or talk about it.
Unbelievable. So, what's your take on that, Nick?
I was just sitting there listening, and I was actually quite lost for words there. I mean, obviously, when you're working, sometimes someone might be heavy-handed and you might have to pull them in, or, something goes pear-shaped. But to that extent,
it's not just one incident, it's many incidents, and continuously illegal search warrants, illegal arrests, beating them up.
It's like being controlled by a military state almost, because they think that they can do whatever they want.
Yes. Not one person in this entire family, uncles, cousins, everything, not one person has ever had contact with police prior to this. Not one of them has a criminal record.
And obviously...
And none of them still do, because none of them have actually been found guilty of anything that the police have charged them for. It's been acquitted in court because they have been clever enough to keep evidence. The dad was beaten up and arrested for not telling his name to the police officers, but the camera he had at his front door actually managed to grab the notebook for the police officer where he had written his full name, address, everything in.
Oh, wow.
But he got arrested.
The young fella,
the young fella is still missing.
I don't.
They came to arrest. They suddenly got pulled over or stopped or something. The 3 young teenage boys. The police comes up and they start getting physical. So these boys are having severe trauma of police. This guy has gone to psychologist's help, has skipped school because he's simply afraid of just going out in the street for these police officers. They have been waiting outside their house. Wow. This is the same city where they live in, so they see them on a daily basis, even when they're not working. So this boy has been terrified. When the police then rocks up at the last episode, they end up running, these teenagers. A cop chases after him, and then in his report, he's written that he fell over a little wall, and that's the last he's seen of him. That's the last anyone have seen of this boy, but the police in Denmark has no concern for his safety. He's now been missing for 1.5 years. No one's heard from him. And the police cannot inform anyone of what they have done to actually search for him, but they have done everything they could. That's what they say.
And it's an incident like this that turns an entire population against the police, whether it's the one-man copper in a country town or a guy in the city. You're all carrying that badge You're all
Yes.
tarred with the same brush.
I have had people writing to me after this incident, people that I know, that I've met personally, talked to nicely and all that, just writing to me,
Yep.
I hate you all. I hate you all. May you all die.
Wow.
This
That's
is
the
the state.
sentiment.
This is where we are in Denmark now, where police are and where the public are. So the community policing at the moment here in Denmark is non-existent.
Sure. And was this child part of a minority, an ethnic minority,
yes,
or
refugee family?
Okay, so refugee, was that, would they have been documented?
Yes, they all were documented. They were all living here, everyone working,
Yeah.
everyone studying, everyone in school. The kids had 0 absence from school, doing great.
Yeah.
The uncle is studying to become a software engineer. The dad has his own shop, self-employed, a family that is highly functioning, taking care of themselves and just sticking to their own little community from where they come from. Because of one incident with police at a cafe where the dad is, with some water pipe tobacco that they charge him for, that it's illegal and he hasn't paid taxes for it. They won't give him a lawyer, but they take him to court. He gets acquitted. After that incident, the whole thing starts. These 4 cops just systematically comes after them time and time again. And management has done nothing. Even though they go to a complaint to the police, they go to the municipality to complain, nothing happens. No one takes this serious. The boy is at the psychologist. It's terrified, anxiety for police. No one still does anything because police keep shutting it down. Police has ultimate power here. So when Kommunen goes in and does something, they just shut it down. Several times they tried to make child welfare reports to get Kommunen to take their kids away from them. Just turned out that they didn't figure out how to actually do it right, so they wrote the wrong kid's name and he was in school that day.
It's absolutely bizarre. What about local? So there is no MPU, there is no community policing over in that particular area where these people can go, other than the police station. They've got no second place that they can go to have a conversation about this and to follow up. And
when they can't, when the 2 other boys gets released and they can't find this boy Fahad, they go to the police station to find answers. What happened to our son? Because last time we saw him, he was being chased by you. The police, 10 officers comes out. They actually end up beating some of them up, telling them they have to just, pardon my language, fuck off or they get arrested. This is the response they get when they come looking for their 16-year-old son. That police has seen as the last
political
person.
Response?
Nothing.
No political response?
Nothing really at all, except that they're just saying police are doing what they can and we just have to follow the procedures pretty much. Just covering things up like always, talking like politicians do. No one showing empathy, no one showing concern, no one showing nothing.
So I mean, obviously,
the police commissioner that's in charge of that district over there on the interview here, he just sits and smiles and says he cannot comment on the specific case because it's still ongoing. And it's unfortunate that his officers has done what they've done, but sometimes, yeah, they're not giving any answers. They're covering up. They're refusing to talk about it.
We all get bad eggs, but there's
this is insane. I'll upload some of the videos from the documentary so you guys can see it afterwards. I've taken some screenshots from it of the footage. Obviously, the whole documentary. I've put the link up in the chat, but it's in Danish, so.
None of this makes sense. None of this makes any sense, Mads. You know, the whole lack of transparency on an issue where a child has gone missing like that is solely to antagonize and to rile up negative sentiment, I would expect, and it's certainly not reflective of the perspectives of the guys, I would imagine.
No, it's gonna be really, really bad for the people out in the front line, because here people are really up in arms in Denmark now over this. It's not so much that he's gone missing. It's not so much about the things that's happened, but exactly like you say, it's the transparency. It's the reason. It's the fact that police are covering it up. They're refusing to talk about it. They're refusing to address it. Simply just shutting down the case, and no one's getting any answers. They just say, yeah, he's well, he's fine. We don't have any reason or concern. We're not going to go look for him anymore. And now, 6 days after this documentary come out, they've decided to charge 2 officers for assault. That one's going to get shut down. They're going to get acquitted for that one as well because of lack of proof. And they've suddenly located a guy in Germany that sought asylum down there a couple of years ago, but now they've lost track of him. But he looks like the boy, so they have reason to believe he's safe. We don't need to look for him anymore. The family still doesn't know where he is. If he really went to Germany, why wouldn't a 16-year-old boy contact his mom? Facebook, social media, there's plenty of ways he could get in contact with her. He wouldn't be gone for a year and a half.
This is going to be a very interesting one to see roll out. We'll keep an eye on this one, Mads. We'll keep an eye on this one and see how things roll over in Denmark. But you know, really, this is an example of where the community need to get together with the frontliners that are also being affected by this and say, look, you know, transparency is needed on these issues for the sake of the relationship with the front line, for confidence.
I think
I
think the only way to do that here now, like now I said, like we have 3 major demonstration protests happening tonight. I've been asked to come into one of them to speak. Don't know if I'm able to come in because I have the kids, but if I am, I'll go in and say a few words, I think. But I'm more worried about the confrontation that's going to happen between police and the public, because as you guys also know, police people are some damn stubborn people. They don't want to back down, and they will see it as a challenge to go out and fight as well. A lot of them, unfortunately.
It's going to elevate things on both sides, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this time police really need to take a step back and be humble. This time they need to be really, really humble and start accepting that everything is not as good as they say, and start opening up a bit more of what's happening in there.
I'm talking about,
people here have really had enough. You can see it on their eyes, you can see it on their faces when you mention this case. It's fire and lightning everywhere, even older senior citizens.
Yeah, it's a tragedy, and that's why I really feel we have to get back to that, coming back to the grassroots. Let's be proactive in rebuilding that trust again from the bottom up. We have to start there, because none of this makes sense to me. I've seen so many decisions over the last couple of years that are not in the interests of the community and are not in the interests of the members that are there serving the community. Mads, I'm going to move on from that particular point, because that's clearly, we can see that lack of transparency and engagement doesn't help the relationship. But it'll bring us on to the third part of this segment, which is I want to talk about the broken. And this is where Nick Trudy comes in with his group Bellator Fortitudinem. So Nick, do you want to give us a little bit about that? So we're going to revisit this. We'll come back and talk about this again next week, Mads, and we'll just get an update on what's taking place over there and what's progressed, and has anything come out of that in terms of follow-up? Is that fair enough?
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure the next week here is going to be an interesting one.
We'll keep an eye on it. Good on you, Mads. But Nick, do you want to tell us a little bit there about your group Bellator Fortitudinem, which I've joined? I think it's a fantastic group, and your intention for the damaged goods concept that you have. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so basically, I was off. I was diagnosed with PTSD. One bad job too many, and went through all the medical side of it. And as I was sitting there waiting to get discharged, I was thinking about how not just police, but all emergency services get lumbered once you say the words mental health. You get treated like you've just said, I've suddenly discovered I've got a third leg. You get ostracized, stuck in a corner, and pretty much put into a too hard basket. Yeah. Now, when you say you got a broken leg, everyone's like very supportive. As soon as you say, I need some help to regroup and understand what's going on with me, they just don't care. So I was under the impression that we would get looked after quite well. However, sitting there, I realised that it was a total sham. And I thought someone needs to make a group, or we need to get some people together that are just about looking after each other. Not a big self-promotion like, hey, look at me, look at that, aren't we great? Just a group of people that can go, how about next month we all meet for lunch and we talk about different things. So I made the group, I created the website, got the Facebook page. As of right now, we've got 223 members. Now, that's just in New South Wales. It includes police, nurse, fire, ambulance, SES, RFS, corrective services, volunteer rescue, and the AFP New South Wales office. Ideally, statewide, but we've got to walk before we can run. The whole idea of it is to look after each other, so we can have camps, three to four camps a year where it's done in different locations, so we can all get together. We have a therapist turn up and we can do yoga. We might just speak about different things and say, what's this sort of therapy like? With the first camp we did, one of the directors was there and she's into horses, so we were doing equine therapy, which is extremely relaxing. You just sort of really get into looking after all the animals, and it takes you away from your mindset. And also I found it quite beneficial because you're sitting there at night with the campfire around you, and if someone wants to open up, they do, but it's also just nice to sit there and just talk about life. We found it very supportive. I have a psychologist on board. She's supporting the group, Krista Hawke, on the north coast of New South Wales there, and Central Coast. She's been dealing with mental health and she's been a psych for 25 years, I think it is. But she's been dealing with police for the last, I think it's 6 to 10 years, and just in their issues. So she's very well aware of how we get treated and the stages of what goes on. I'm also linked up with the Quest Foundation, the Quest for Life, which is on the South Coast and Southern Highlands. Esther McKay, she's was a police officer. She's on that business as well. That's very good for therapy sessions. They actually do stuff where it's like a 5-day one. There's live-in courses you do about how to deal with your mental health, any grief you've come across, how you're feeling. And they also have links to and courses related to the family. And because, when I was going through my stuff, if it wasn't for my kids and a couple of my friends, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be here. So my family, my mum, and she didn't know what to say and what to do. So having courses where it's better for families to be aware of things as well is quite good. So we created this, and I have Monday evenings at 8 p.m. I do a Facebook Live, and I just talk about my life, how I'm going, how the week's been, an update on the group. And then I've caught up with a lot of people on there that I used to work with. One of the guys, Justin Bassuttle, we've come up with an idea where we want to have a podcast, and we're going to upload that to YouTube as well and have it on the channel, because we think if we can get support, we can then raise funds, because we are a registered non-for-profit company, and we are currently, our application to be a registered charity with the Australian Charities and Non-for-Profit Commission. Our application's before them now, which just means we can get more and different styles of funding and grants. So we're going to have the podcast, and it'll basically be like, for the first one, I'll be interviewing Justin about his life, his policing career, things that have happened in his life, the mental health struggles and the self-harm issues that he's had, and onto his career now. So, and then the next one, he might be interviewing me. We might get other people on there, obviously, from the different branches. It's not all going to be doom and gloom. We're going to have people on there doing, some outside of the policing sort of thing, like have Krista there from the psych. We'll have one of the chaplains come in and say, well, what do you guys do? Because apart from a funeral and at the academy, you don't really see a chaplain very much. So what's your aspect? What can you do for mental health? Have people in the community that come in. We also want to have, some people get on there and go, hey, these are some of the stupid times we had and some of the silly times. Make it a bit lighthearted and put although there obviously will be times when it is quite stressful to talk about things, but obviously just put a bit of a lighthearted and humorous approach to it as well, and make people realise that we are human. So basically, we want to do that. Have it on the YouTube, and because that will go everywhere as well. And the whole idea is to get funding for us as well, because I've created an app for the mobile phone, and I've got a pitch deck that I'm ready to send to businesses to help us. It's basically going to be a lot of people I found in my policing career are more inclined to press a button to get help than they are to pick up a phone and ask for help. And on the app, it's going to have a red button and a blue button. You press the red button when you're really struggling, and it sends emergency messages to myself and your emergency contacts. And also to when you press the blue button, it sends just a message to me and your emergency contacts to get in touch with you because you want to talk. Obviously, if the red button's been pressed, I make the call to the AMBOs to do a concern for welfare on a former member.
Great idea.
I've had a lot of people since I've started this group. I've probably had phone calls weekly from people just saying, "Can I talk to you?" And people I don't know, and I'm not a counsellor or anything, but I'm happy to talk to people about it. And they've found it beneficial in getting the help that they need.
I think it's a fantastic idea that you have, Nick, and I think it's much needed. And this is part of this holistic thing for me. I mean, you're doing it. It's not just the police; you're doing it for the rest of the front line. But it's the same issue. I mean, same newspaper I'm looking at today. 75%. Sorry, I think they were talking about The Voice. Is the 17th thing in people's list of priorities. The primary priority is mental health and well-being. That's what it is out there at the moment, because so many people are being affected by the bigger picture, and that includes the people that are in the box of uniforms, like our frontliners as well. And I applaud you for what you're doing in that regard. I love the idea of your concept of damaged goods in terms of listening to people's stories, so people can see the human that's inside that box and put that human face in it, because that's critical in terms of understanding our community and working with the community as well. And that's where that support comes in with each other. And if you have that level of support for each other as well, it avoids what's taking place over there in Denmark. I mean, that strange situation where there's no communication. We established the communications from the grassroots, and it negates that kind of behavior, and that kind of shutdown in engagement. So I just want to give you a clap for what you're doing. I think it's fantastic, Nick.
Thank you, mate. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that. There's the stuff that could happen in Denmark could happen over here, because I find there isn't a link with policing and the community anymore. And the more people that are stressed on the job, the less police you're going to have to physically do that job. Like, I don't know if the public knows this, but the New South Wales Police are down to 60% strength at the moment. That's how bad they are. They're calling people that are out of the job and have been out for years if they want to come back to the police, because they are losing, they're hemorrhaging experience due to mental health. And yet they turn around and go that there's no mental health problem. Education is the key. They bang on about education, but they don't educate the police officers on their own mental health and how to deal with that. So if you start from the grassroots level and work at educating the officers, you will then have them the ability to understand what their mental health is going through. So if they do end up staying in the job, then they have an awareness of it. But if they do leave and they become, for want of better words, society's problem because they've got mental health, they might not be such a burden financially, and on medical things as well, treatment-wise and stuff like that. But it will also make them more, I think it will make them more approachable to the community, because it's understood then, and the police will have more compassion. Because it wasn't until I went through my stuff years of my first stuff, a plane crash and, murder, suicide, and, all this sort of, I had about 4 bad jobs in a week.
Yeah.
And I turned around, and it wasn't until after I got back to work that I really changed my attitudes towards mental health. I became more empathetic, and I think I became a better police officer. And I listened to people more, and I think that's a big thing. If you understand mental health and that you can deal with it and you can live with it, you become more empathetic. And I think if the police start their education and training better and they teach people these things, you will have better police officers, because, there's a lot of people out there and they don't necessarily have PTSD. But as soon as you say mental health to someone, you automatically think of the guy who's got schizophrenia or someone like you see in the movie Glass and all this sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily that, having anxiety is a form of it. There's again, it's a mental health injury because it is a brain injury. It's not a disorder. It's an injury for people. And I like to use the term injury because it seems less derogatory to me. But I think if you have better education with the police in their own mental health, you will have better connection with the community because they're more understanding.
I think in terms of educating in the academies and that, the real way we can really help in that regard is by demonstrating productive engagements. So we can actually show where positive outcomes have come from positive engagements, and to reinstill that and to bring that in almost as a proposal and to show them and to try and rekindle that relationship, because the common thread here is we're missing transparency, we're missing acknowledgements, and we're missing some sort of instruments there that people within the job can deal with extreme situations. Example, that one over there in Denmark, or the situations that we had down here in Victoria where we had people being shot at up at the shrine. I mean, that was just an out of control situation. But again, not reflective of the average guy on the ground, the average local cop who's trying to do his best for the local community under the pressures that he has or she has. And, there has to be a way of people dealing with that within the job, of separating away from that, but it's got to start at community level, where the people express discontent, and, the police at the lower ranks are there with them to express their discontent because they're being impacted too. And, ultimately at the end of the day, we're all the one community, so
that's right.
That's where we really need to come in and support each other in that regard.
I think unfortunately, because of the amount of people that are experienced people that are leaving the cops, although you're left with police officers, you're left with very inexperienced police officers who are too scared to stand up to the bosses. I mean, I used to annoy the bosses when I was in the job because I didn't get paid to deal with crap or to be spoken to badly. I was paid to do a job. But it comes back to there is discretion in that job, and sometimes you used to get more out of not charging someone for a small offence. You would get a better reaction out of them by going, oh, actually, you let me go last time. Well, I might not do that again because, and then all cops aren't bad. Or even giving a speeding ticket. Like, you might get a speeding ticket where you go, listen, if I give you this speeding ticket, you're going to lose your license. So I'm going to give you the lesser ticket that is only got 2 points instead of 4. And then people start to realise, oh, actually, you're not so bad. There is a human element there as well. So simple little things like that can have a massive impact on the community. But I just feel that there's so many people gone that the people that are out there now, because I know for a fact that they're actually pulling detectives from the officers and putting them back in uniform because they don't have enough staff.
Same in Denmark.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's a massive thing, and it's just like you've got guys who are specialist detectives who can't fit into the uniform, who are having to go back on the truck. And when's the last time they did a domestic? So you have having people leave, and the people that are left to do those jobs don't have that discretionary mindset, or don't have. I don't think they've even got the physical presence of being a police officer. Because, I mean, can you imagine some of them now? I saw some down the street the other day and I thought, you've got spots on my bum that are probably older than these people. And you look at them and it's like, would you listen to these people? And they just don't seem to have that presence. And I think a lot of it as well is they're just so keen to get out there and do the job that they don't want to cause waves because they want to get the next promotion or they want to be looked at for the detective spot or whatever. And you're going to get looked at with favourable things with the less purple folders you have.
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah, and it's, for me, mate, there's a difference between policing and law enforcement. Law enforcement for me is where policing has failed, and policing is the proactive engagement in de-escalating. And it's not about enforcing the law; it's about guiding people and engaging with people so that the law is not broken, right? And that's what it's about. Law enforcement is when we've gone on to the second step. We failed in the first one, which is the policing side. That's true.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. But maybe that's the space that we need to get to, which we tried to do with Police for Freedom, the group we were with. But maybe we need to go to another third space where we have ex-members, pulling together and just cooperating and trying to engage with the local community and the guys at the grassroots, the lower rank guys in the community to try and change this approach. Because like you say, guys are looking for promotion. They're getting promotion based upon key performance indicators, right? That's how it is now.
That's right. There's a lot of people in positions, a lot of people in positions of power just because they can complete an online computer test. But let's go out into the real world and do some policing. And I know
they don't know how to do it.
You were saying, Mads?
Sorry,
Go ahead, Mads.
Yeah, and they don't even know how to do it anymore. Like most of them, they'd happened in Denmark just before I left. Like some of the senior bosses were more or less told to get out on the road. I end up going a patrol with someone who hasn't worn a belt for 2-3 years. He has no idea about the legislation. He has no idea what to charge people for. He has no idea why we're stopping people.
Wow.
Literally clueless, even though he spent 15, 20 years in the job. But he spent the last 10 years just looking for promotions.
And these are the people that are the leaders that these young police look to. So you can just see that there is no benefit of having someone who has absolutely no clue on what we do. Then you expect these, and unfortunately, these young coppers that are out there, they're not getting taught the right way. They're not getting, I know for a fact that at the academy they don't get taught certain things that I was taught. So they're changing things just to rush them through, and they're missing things. Like, it's just insane. And a prime example, I won't mention his name, but there was a duty officer who came to Liverpool. He did 18 months on the truck, and then he went off to an office and he never came back until he was a duty officer. And then he's now a superintendent in charge of the specialist command. And I'm like, you're telling these people how out on the street how to do their job when you spent 18 months. And he's the sort of person who thinks that, the leather jacket and the tie is good for a winter uniform, but you try jumping fences at night and getting into a scuffle wearing a tie and making sure your leather jacket's done up. It doesn't work. And then you wonder why. Well, the community doesn't listen to us because the cops aren't out there in the community because they're too busy trying to do the best they can with what they've got.
Yeah, it's an incredible time that we're in, and it comes back into, when you swear an oath into the job, you swear an oath to the people. That's what I did. I swore an oath to to be a guardian of the peace at the time. So that's not necessarily about a contract. That's an undertaking. It's almost like a vocation. And you don't have to be in the job to do that. We're still in the same space. I mean, that's why we're here talking, because, we're concerned about how our fellow members are being impacted by, by issues within the job, how our community are being affected by it. And the community also need to be concerned about this. And we need to stand and have those conversations. Go ahead, Mads. Yeah.
Actually, now that you say that, Denmark, we're one of the only countries in the world we don't swear an oath.
No oath?
No oath. You go to your tests, you get accepted into the academy, you go sign a job contract. In Western Australia,
that's interesting.
Only a job contract. You don't need any swearing of an oath. We've never done that in Denmark. In Western Australia, we had to stand in the chapel, swear an oath before we even got given a badge or was allowed out further on the campus.
Fascinating.
In Denmark, we sign a job contract and then you sign an agreement with the union that they'll come and help you whenever you're in trouble, and then you sign up to pay some money to them. That's how everyone is presented. The first thing you get is a job contract, your union, all the glory things about how good it is to be in this system and how good your pension is. And you sign your life away, and then you're stuck there.
Amazing. It's an interesting time, gentlemen, and I'm thankful that gentlemen like yourselves are here to have these conversations and to try and alleviate the tensions that are there and the misinformations and all the rest of it. That we're all part of a them and a they. It's not. It's there's individuals in that job, and And again, we have to get back to that community thing, which is what this Cops Canteen is all about, to give people an insight into the mindset of the members that are there. But gentlemen, we've been on for an hour and a half. I want to thank you for coming on again. It's been a fantastic conversation. Next week, I'd like to revisit what's taking place over there in Denmark, and we'll have a look at it, any other tensions there that are developing, because, there's a bit of a powder keg at the moment with everything that's taking place around the world. And with tensions in the communities, the police are going to be stuck in the middle. So let's have the conversations, guys, and have a good week. And we'll revert again next Friday, if you guys are okay to come on. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's wonderful. Nick, thanks for your time. I'll put a link down again for Bellator Fortitudinem again. I'll just put a link at the end, on YouTube for people to connect in there. And wonderful. And we'll sign out with a tune. So bid you all a farewell, and we'll see you next week, guys. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for today. Thanks, guys.
You gonna do? Yeah. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? When you were 8 and you had bad traits, you go to school and learn the golden rule. So why are you acting like a bloody fool? If you get hot, then you must get cool. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? You chuck it on that one, you chuck it on this one, you chuck it on your mother and you chuck it on your father, you chuck it on your brother and you chuck it on your sister, you chuck it on that one and you chuck it on me. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Nobody now give you no break. Police now give you no break. That old soldier man I give you no break. Not even your eyes now give you no breaks. Hey, bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Mother with the love of a father. Reflection comes and reflection goes. I know sometimes you wanna let go. Hey, I know sometimes you wanna let go. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? You're too bad, you're too rude, you're too bad, you're too rude, yeah. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? You chuck it on that one, you chuck it on this one, you